Hello and welcome to the #1 Championship podcast, the second tier. I'm Ryan Dilks, and this is our reaction straight off the back of Coventry City going back top of the league after beating Middlesbrough 3-1 in the gigantic clash between the top two. I'm, of course, joined by the Carl Rushworth to my Haji Wright. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
Oh, Justin, we were bigging this game up for days on end because it had the potential to be an absolutely seismic one in the grand scheme of this championship season, and it did disappoint, did it? What a great 90 minutes we've just witnessed.
It was a fantastic 90 minutes. I don't think, especially in the first half was brilliant, but there wasn't a lot of shots going off. But actually what was happening in between the two boxes was just great football, winning the ball back, getting it up the other end, and it was back and forth at times. But yeah, brilliant performance from Coventry. That was great. And Middlesbrough woke up a little bit in the second half, sparked something for about 17 seconds, and then yeah, we had some great scenes at the end too. Yeah, fantastic game of football.
Yeah, considering around this time last year we had the infamous Burnley v Leeds game, which still stays in my mind as one of the worst games I've ever seen in my life. That had the potential to be a similar thing here, but it definitely wasn't that. This was a fantastic game, and we've got a lot to get into right here. And if you're watching us live tonight, ladies and gents, then thank you for joining us. Get involved in the conversation. We'll be reading out your comments and questions as we go through the game which we've just witnessed. If you're here with us right now or watching afterwards, please remember to like this video and subscribe. It's the best way to help support us and the work we do. I'm reliably informed, Justin, that we did a pre-match poll on the second tier YouTube channel of who everyone thought was going to win this game. 77% said Middlesbrough.
There we go.
23% said Coventry. So egg on all of those subscribers' faces right there, and ours as well. But that's another reason to get involved and subscribe to the channel right now so you can get involved in polls like that. I'll also start with a 3-word review from Matt here, who says, Lampard's tactical masterclass. Yeah, a lot to get into from this game, Justin. But Coventry started off absolutely brilliantly in this game, didn't it? They came flying out the blocks, including Haji Wright hitting the post after just 2 minutes from a header. But then they went ahead in the 21st minute after that man again, Haji Wright, poked home a cross from Jack Rodoni after some brilliant work in the build-up by Tatsuro Sakamoto. But that was the very least Coventry deserved, because they really did start this game brilliantly, didn't they?
I was really taken aback at how fast they started, and it's not a case of, yeah, how do you describe speed? How do you describe starting a game quick? But they were just in amongst Boro as soon as Boro got the ball, whether that was Luke Ayling, whether that was Hayden Hackney or Aidan Morris or Riley McGree. They were on it. They were on him, and it was impossible for Middlesbrough to make any headway with the ball. And that's how you start a game fast and aggressive, and that set the stall out. I didn't think they'd be able to keep it up for the entirety of the game, but it didn't really matter. It didn't matter because the way they managed the second half again was brilliant. But on that first half start, they really set out a standard for themselves.
Yeah, they got on Middlesbrough's faces, didn't they? Middlesbrough were trying to play the ball around, but just ended up making their own mistakes, really. They were their own worst enemy at times, because Coventry were just constantly on them, pressing them hard, and Boro didn't really have an answer for it. And in previous weeks, we've seen Coventry be quite open in midfield. I think Frank Onyeka in particular made a huge difference in that regard here tonight. Yeah, absolutely. And that meant that Middlesbrough didn't have the freedom of the middle of the park, which they would have liked. But yeah, Coventry just managed to keeping them high up the field, and that meant that Middlesbrough couldn't make any headway. They did get into some good areas at times, but the final ball was just lacking constantly, and it took until the 40th minute for Middlesbrough to really have their first chance. Morgan Whittaker getting on the end of a Matt Target cross. There was a bit of pinball from the resulting corner after that. But the entire first half, Coventry were well deserving of their lead. We've got a comment here from Andrew. He says, Frank the Tank is absolutely what we need. What a debut. Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that at all, Justin. But yeah, that first half, Coventry were well deserving of the lead, weren't they?
They were brilliant. And again, it wasn't a case of they had the lion's share of chances or shots. Just they dictated the tempo of the game. They dictated the game generally. and Middlesbrough really were snuffed out. And you did mention that Middlesbrough got in some good areas, and they did, but also I don't really think they did it. It's hard to describe because the decision making on the ball from Boro, I thought generally all night was really, really poor, really poor. But I think it was really poor because of how Coventry managed them. They were aggressive in the press, and they suffocated Boro at times and made them make a lot of very questionable decisions on the ball, and arguably rattled them, shall we say, to throw out a term, just to really summarise it, because that's what it felt like. Middlesbrough really struggled to get any headway, and for a team to do that with this Borough side who've won 6 in a row at this point, I think is quite remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. Borough did start to get a bit of a foothold in the game, as I say, from just before half time. And then at the start of the second half, they came out the traps really well. Morgan Whittaker heading just over the bar. Then Middlesbrough did manage to get their first shot on target through Hayden Hackney in the 53rd minute. But almost straight after that, Coventry went up the other end and doubled their leads in the 55th minute with Haji Wright doubling Coventry's lead after a big ball upfield by Carl Rushworth. Got a comment here from Dennis who said, some of Borough's defending was laughable tonight. Coventry definitely deserved the win. This looks like it will be a turning point. Whether it'll be a turning point we'll discuss shortly, but I'm going to agree with Dennis there, Justin, because what Luke Ayling in particular was doing for Coventry's second, I'm really not sure. An experienced defender should not be getting outdone by a big ball up the pitch like that.
He shouldn't. He shouldn't. There'll be a lot said about Sol Bryn in that scenario, because
See,
Sol Bryn,
Luke Ayling was making a big deal about Sol Bryn's role in that, but I looked at it and thought, Ayling's let it bounce. Don't let it bounce. It's like Sunday League stuff, that, isn't it?
It's horrific. I playing Sunday League, I used to get bollocked for letting it bounce. I was a defender. I used to get bollocked, and that's Sunday League. So the standards clearly aren't filtering up. But so the only thing with Sol Bryn, he could have been 5 or 10 yards forwards, but I still think he would have retreated back, because Cole Rushworth, as he is with the ball at his feet, he plays the ball into some really good areas. He's already got an assist this season, I think, off the top of my head, by doing that, or at least a hockey assist.
Sky were just saying after the game that it was his first assist of his career. So he may have done something like that, because he's very good with his feet.
Yeah.
Apparently it's his first assist.
There was a scenario earlier on in the season where he's kicked the ball up and Coventry have scored from it. It was Route 1. I remember making a big deal out of it because I love Route 1. But with that, you are right. Luke Ayling shouldn't be getting done by the bounce. And if he is getting done by the bounce, he should be doing more to make it difficult for Haji Wright. But he didn't. Haji Wright had a really easy chance to get a shot on goal there, and that's disappointing. And then Luke Ayling's reaction, I'm really, really disappointed by it. An experienced player basically selling out his young goalkeeper. It's just not great. It's not great at all.
No, it wasn't. But Middlesbrough, despite being 2 goals down at that point, didn't take it as that's game over. You had Jeremy Sarmiento hitting the post from a curling shot, and I looked at that and thought, oh, is that a warning shot for Coventry right there? And then Middlesbrough managed to get their necks back into it in the 67th minute with Riley McGree smashing home. And at that point, Justin, I thought, here we go. Is this going to be is that going to be the turning point in this game where, you know, it all starts going wrong for Coventry again, and we start seeing the Coventry which we've seen over the past 14 games or so? But it didn't last very long. Middlesbrough's comeback, if you will, because in the 71st minute, Haji Wright completed his hat-trick from the penalty spot after a handball by Matt Target. I think they were saying on Sky it was 77 seconds between the penalty being given and Middlesbrough scoring their goal. So it didn't last long, the comeback. Just firstly, we agree that that was a handball, it was a penalty.
A classic of the genre, Ryan. It was definitely handball, yeah.
Okay, good. I just know in this modern era where handballs are a bit subjective, shall we say, this one may not have been the case. But I don't think there's any debate about that at all. But that rounded off the game for Coventry, and then from that point, it was pretty much plain sailing. Middlesbrough did keep Carl Rushworth busy with a couple of shots on target, but didn't really trouble him too much at all. And then the game petered out, and it led to Coventry getting a massive 3 points. And you saw the full-time celebrations at the end, Justin. They know how big a result this was. And the supporters knew how big a result this was, because they were celebrating this like they just won the flipping World Cup.
And rightly so, because a lot of fans lost belief or started to lose belief. And I think those celebrations probably justify that regaining of the belief. It's an important milestone. I think the 3 points is vital. For me, the performance was more important because even if Coventry come away from this game with a draw, I look at that and go, okay, you do have some mineral about you. You can go about this promotion push and really drive forward. The performance was the big thing for me, but the 3 points is an important 3 points nonetheless. And like you said, the celebrations justify it. There'll be a lot of celebration police coming out suggesting that's why they're celebrating like that. But the reason why is because they did bottle a big old lead at the top of the table, and they just got back to the top of the table with a win over their promotion rivals. It's huge, humongous.
Yeah, any celebration police can piss off, as far as I'm concerned. I hate the celebration police so much, but that's because this is such a big result for Coventry. And we'll talk more about that shortly, but they did fully deserve it in this game because from start to finish, they were the better side, despite Middlesbrough having more shots, nearly twice as many shots, having 72% possession. Coventry was still in control of the game in a strange way.
Yeah.
Don't know how that makes sense when you talk about the stats which I've just mentioned there, but they managed the game so well. And as I say, kept Boro at arm's length pretty much throughout the game. So Coventry, I've got to say, they fully deserve that. And now it's a question of where they go next. But we'll talk more about that shortly, ladies and gents, because if you are enjoying tonight's show, then now is the perfect time to sign up to the second tier YouTube membership community, where for just £4.99 a month, you'll get access to custom emojis to use in these live streams and the comment section of every YouTube video. You'll also get access to the second tier Discord, where you can chat to us and loads of other Championship fans. And in addition to that, you'll get an exclusive bonus video from us every single week. Just hit the join icon right next to the subscribe button to sign up now. But Justin, Coventry City, they are back top of the league. As you say, were top for a long old time, having been there since, what was the stat I was peddling out last Monday? Was it the 4th of October that they were top of the league up until last Monday? But they've now managed to regain their position back at the summit of the Championship. And as we say, fully deserved. It's now a question of where they go next, isn't it?
It is. I think that's the thing that I need reassurance in is this Coventry team can repeat that performance over and over again. Now, if Frank Lampard retains Frank Onyeka in that starting 11, I think they will get promoted, because I think he was the decisive figure in this game. It made sense that Haji Wright got the man of the match, but it should have been Frank Onyeka. It really, really should have been. But if he's in that starting 11, if Frank Lampard continues to plug those gaps that I highlighted in previous weeks, and I said in the preview show that if he changes the game plan and tweaks things slightly tactically and makes them more resolute and compact in midfield, which he did, they will win more games. And lo and behold, they win a game. So is it the Frank Lampard effect, or is it the Justin Peach effect, Ryan? Come on.
The Justin Peach effect hasn't done very well in the previous show this year, has it? So in that case, I'd ignore that completely. Yeah, Coventry have got to look at this as a turning point, don't they? This has to be a turning point in their season. Now, one thing that's got to be mentioned in that regard is whether it's a turning point or not, we'll find out soon enough. You've got to look at the evidence that we've got in front of us, that Coventry are very good at home. They have won 10 of their last 12 heading into this game. Yeah. So, they would have been expected to win this game, even though the recent form of the two paints a very different picture than that. Coventry also have a ridiculous record against Middlesbrough, where they haven't lost in their last 10 meetings. So for some reason, Middlesbrough see them as a bogey side. While it is, I don't know. So is that just those two factors combining there to get this result in front of us? We'll see, won't we? This was just their 5th win in their last 15. So, that goes to show their form has been very shaky recently. But I look at how Coventry did here. I would disagree with you. I don't think Frank Onyeka was man of the match. I don't even think Haji Wright was man of the match. I thought Bobby Thomas was man of the match. Okay. I thought he was monumental at the back, and I thought Joel Latibeaudier alongside him had a great game as well. Yeah. But we haven't seen that very often with Coventry recently at the back, have we? They have been very, very shaky defensively. And we didn't see that in this game. Maybe it was because they didn't have to have as much of the ball. That may be a factor in that. But when it came to just doing the basics defensively, they were two of the big reasons why Middlesbrough really struggled to lay a glove on Cov in this game. But Haji Wright finding form again, getting the hat trick here, had scored a couple of goals recently, actually, after going, 3 months without scoring a goal or something like that. So when I say a turning point, it's got to be a turning point for all those guys being better at the back, less shaky than they have, but also being better going forwards, putting away chances, creating more chances. If they can start doing that again, which they definitely haven't been doing over the past 14 games, then yeah, this will be a turning point for Coventry. But it's just about those individuals being able to replicate it again, because yeah, this is a big win against a big promotion rival, but it is ultimately just 3 points. You're going to win a lot more points over the next few weeks than you are in this one night. Stating the obvious, Justin, but that's obviously the case here.
Yeah, there's 14 games left. But the reassurance that this team is still there, I think that's where this performance comes from it. And the 3 points is there as well. I think if they'd have lost it, you'd start to question whether they do have the bottle or whether they have bottled it. It's simple as that. But the performance that they put in is the reassurance, and they can play without the ball. They showed that here. They arguably can look better without the ball in games that they've needed to defend, like the Southampton game at St Mary's. But this was a performance for me that showed me, or at least highlighted, that individuals, there's still quality there. There's been some bad form. Haji Wright, you mentioned, Ephraim Mason-Clark, Tatsuro Sakamoto. These players haven't been as free scoring as they have been, but what they put in shift wise defensively was the important thing. So I think going into this next leg of games, this final quarter, it's not about scoring as many goals as you can. It's about keeping as many out, and the defence will get them over the line. So if they defend like that, they will get over the line.
Yeah. Well, another thing that definitely has to change from a Coventry perspective is their away form, because that's something that has really let them down in recent weeks. As we say, despite Coventry's form being very shaky recently, they've been sublime at home, haven't they? Winning, well, this will now mean it's 11 and 13 that they've won at home, which is some home record. That is a home record worthy of champions, but they're winless in their last 8 on their travels, and 3 of their next 4 are away. So when it comes to following this up, that's what one thing in particular that Coventry definitely have to work on. And look, they've got West Brom next. West Brom have been okay at home this season. They've definitely been a lot better at home than they have been away. But Coventry should be looking at that, thinking that's a great opportunity for us to follow this result up. Then they've got Sheffield United away, which is a really tricky game. But if Coventry are going to get this form back on track and get things going again, then yeah, they have got to look at that and say, yeah, we've got to follow this up now, because as I say, you're going to win just as many points against Middlesbrough as you are in that West Brom game next. So they've got to make sure that they follow that up. And yeah, the away form is something they definitely have to remedy if they are going to, see this as a turning point. Got a question here from AS9 who says, any mention of Lampard, lads? You want to give a mention to Lampard, Justin?
Yeah, it's worth pointing out that he changed it up tonight. He changed it up because he needed to change it up. They've been far too open in midfield in recent weeks. With Coventry pressing as high as they were, there was the danger that Boro could play through them and really exploit the space. But bringing in Frank Onyeka for his first minutes in a Coventry shirt, by the way, was a much needed decision. I think he got his substitutes right. Rather than react to Middlesbrough scoring, he I think it was Josh Eccles, and I can't remember who else came on with Josh Eccles, but he maintained the same substitutions that were going to come on. He didn't change it up. He was persistent with that, and I think that was really important as well, because he got the energy back into that midfield. So yeah, it was a really good performance from a managerial point of view from Lampard, because the way they pressed in the first half was brilliant, the way they started was brilliant, but also the way they managed the game in the second half was just as good. They weren't as forward thinking, if you like, or as aggressive. They had to be compact, they had to be organised, and they were. And that isn't because the players are suddenly that. It's game plan, it's game management, and that's down to the manager.
Yeah, well, I mean, everything we've said here has been indirectly praising Lampard's performance in this game, because the game management, the control of the game was absolutely spot on from start to finish. And, being able to close the gaps in the midfield, which we've seen previously, getting in Middlesbrough's faces, that ultimately led to, Middlesbrough being kept at arm's length. And, defensively, I think Bobby Thomas and Joel Atabodier were absolutely phenomenal, but they were perhaps helped at times by Middlesbrough just not being able to produce that final ball. But at the same time, that's because Coventry kept Middlesbrough so high up the pitch that Middlesbrough didn't have the options around to, find that final ball. So, yeah, I would have to say, tactically, Lampard got this game absolutely spot on. I mean, we've been saying that for the past few minutes anyway, that Coventry got this game absolutely spot on. But yeah, you've got to take your hat off for Frank Lampard. I was obviously come under a bit of stick recently, even from a few Coventry fans I've been seeing during their recent wobble in form. But you've got to say, yeah, he has absolutely nailed it tonight. And that's why Coventry are back at the summit of the table. Now it's about how they follow it up, isn't it? As we've just been alluding to just then. What do we think about this game from a Middlesbrough perspective then, Justin? We were making the point on Friday that this was a bigger game for Coventry than it was Middlesbrough, because Coventry's wobbling form. They need to turn that around at some point. This was a great place to do it. They may have done that right here. What do we think for Boro, though? Does this performance signal a bit of concern for you, or do you think, difficult place to go, can't win them all?
It's a difficult place to go, and obviously they've got a weird hoodoo with Coventry as well. As you've already mentioned. I think from a game point of view, I was really disappointed because for whatever reason, Boro persisted playing really narrow, and that Coventry just lapped it up. Coventry lapped it up, and I wanted them to change things up. I think Sarmiento coming on really added a bit more dynamic, especially down the left-hand side, did open things up, but it just wasn't enough. But I think with Boro, I'm not so impacted by the defeat, in the sense that they've responded by a recent bout of bad form by going on and winning 6 games in a row. They lose to Derby earlier on in January. Next game, they beat Southampton 4-0. So what they've done in recent weeks is respond to the setback. Coventry haven't. That's why it's an interesting dynamic we've got here. Can Coventry go on and maintain good form and go again? Boro have shown that they can do that. So I'm not so bothered by it. I just wish that they changed things up slightly in game. I think this, I won't say stubbornness, but they could have really opened the game up by adding a bit more width. It's a simple thing to say, but I was just disappointed by that.
A comment here from Richard, who says, a disappointing result, but not the end of the world for Borough. Promotion is still in our hands, and we didn't play too badly, just beaten by the better team on the night. Yeah, I think Middlesbrough, I think beaten by the better team on the night would be a good summary of that, because you could just look at this game and say, look, if Luke Ayling didn't let the ball bounce, if Matt Targett didn't stick his hand out, it could have been a different result on the day. I do think Luke Ayling had a really poor game.
He was bullied all
throughout.
night.
Well, it wasn't just that. On the ball, his passing was a bit wayward all night. I thought Hayden Hackney didn't have the greatest game either. Boro did play some nice football at times. It's just, as I say, when it came to the final ball, that it was just lacking, which we haven't really seen. I mean, the Sheffield United game this time last week, they looked completely untouchable in that game. But we just didn't see that here. You can't do it every single week. As you said, they've won 6 in a row, so it's not the end of the world at all. I think it is just a speed bump for them. It's the same as Cov. How do they follow that up now? But I would be more surprised if Boro were to go completely off the rails now than I would be if Cov didn't follow this up, if that makes sense. Because I think it's just one of them where, things didn't go their way on the night. I've got a comment here from Collapsible Chair, who says Boro played some lovely football. On another day, they wouldn't have scored more than one, or they would have scored more than one goal. Sorry. Yeah, I think that's a good summary. I think it was just. Go on, Justin. What were you going to say?
I think it's. yes, they play some nice 1-2s, but I don't think they open Coventry up enough with those 1-2s. Like I said, one way of getting around Coventry is the wing backs get really, really high. They do leave a lot of space, and I did point out Frankie Onyeka did plug that quite well, but without natural wingers in that team, they just didn't exploit the space enough. And playing too centrally put a lot of pressure on the likes of Hackney, Alan Brown, Aidan Morris, and they got snuffed out. So yes, the 1-2s were nice to see, and maybe they would have scored more than one goal on another day, probably against a poorer team. Against Coventry side, you've got to really, really mix things up and be flexible in your approach, and they would, and that's why I think they lost. So I think putting this down to them being beaten by the better team is right, but saying by playing some nice football would have, I think it's too much of a pat on the head. I don't think it's quite right.
I feel like that is slightly harsh because I think Boro did play some nice football and got into some really good areas. It's just, as I say, when it came to the final ball, they just couldn't find that for whatever reason. But look, these things happen. Coventry defended really well. I would look at their next games. I mean, when you talk about inviting games after your first defeat in 6, they've got Oxford at home next weekend, and then they've got Leicester at home in midweek. So yeah, you'd be looking at that as a Middlesbrough fan thinking, look, it's a disappointing night tonight, but this is a fantastic opportunity for us to make it 8 wins in 9, which would be a phenomenal tally, wouldn't it? And be a great chance for them to get back top of the league, depending on what goes on with Coventry. So yeah, it's a disappointing night, but I wouldn't take too much disappointment away from it if I was Middlesbrough. But it's a big result in the grand scheme of the season, Justin. We'll see how things go over the coming weeks, won't we? But it's now time for the polls, ladies and gents. This is where we've put out 3 questions to you in the YouTube live stream to get your thoughts on the events of tonight. And the first question we put out is this: are Coventry going up, yes or no? Justin, what do you think?
If they play like that for the rest of the season, they will. I have my reservations because they've had a big wobble. Big wobble.
Yeah, I think it has got to be pointed out that this result really does even things up in the race for automatic promotion now, because if Ipswich win their 2 games in hand, they would be within 3 points of both Coventry and Middlesbrough. So that's something to keep in mind in the grand scheme of the season. But after a result like that, you got to say Coventry have still shown they are more than capable of producing a performance like that. It's just about doing it every single week. 83% of people said yes, Coventry are going up. 17% said no. Next question: who was your man of the match? Haji Wright, Frank Onyeka, Bobby Thomas. Justin, you said Onyeka, yes?
Yeah, Onyeka, definitely.
69% of people said Haji Wright. 23% said Onyeka. 8% said Bobby Thomas. Got a comment here from Richard who says you're both wrong. Sakamoto was the best player on the park. Pressed brilliantly, disrupted us, great outlet, and created the breakthrough goal. I wouldn't disagree with that either. I think his little turn that he did in the build-up for the first goal was absolutely superb, and he was one of the main reasons why Middlesbrough found it so hard to play out from the back, because he was pressing just relentlessly, wasn't he? But that's what Tatsuro Sakamoto does. Are Middlesbrough ready for the Premier League is the final question. Justin, yes or no?
No, but most teams who come up from the Championship into the Premier League are not ready for it, so it's no disgrace.
Yeah, they would need to do a lot of work in the summer, but that's a bridge we'll cross when we get to that. We've got a comment here from Will who says if Boro go up, then I can see them doing as Sunderland are buying a huge number of players to try and compete. A fair few of their players aren't Premier League ready, in my opinion. 61% of people agree with Will on that and say Middlesbrough aren't ready for the Premier League. 39% said yes. So there you go. Still a long way to go in this Championship season, ladies and gents. We've got 14 games remaining of the season, so still plenty of twists and turns left of the campaign, but a huge night for Coventry in the race for the promotion and for the title, for that matter. So a great result for them. Haji Wright, the hero, as Coventry win 3-1 against Middlesbrough. But there we go, ladies and gents. This has been our live stream reacting to that game tonight. A big big thank you, as always, for joining us on this Monday night. We'll be back again on Thursday with a roundup of all the midweek games in the Championship, as well as a few newsy bits and pieces here and there, which we'll discuss in due course. So we look forward to seeing you then for that. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.